but it's all good. All right, so it looks like we've got quite a few students coming through, all of Amy's students. Oh, hey, Soph. So, yeah. Sorry, that was hilarious.
They're on their way out, yeah.
Do you have any animals, Amy, that you want to have? Just okay.
Yeah, just the 2 wild ones that are leaving right now. So.
Oh, very good. So this week on It's Friday, this month, we're doing it on a Thursday, just because we have so many awesome people here who are very busy. So thank you everyone who's able to make it, and anyone watching the video. Really appreciate you taking the time. So who we have today, and what I'm going to do is introduce everyone by name. So we have Angie Redmond, we have Aaron Coleman, Zuri Washington, and Rashod Taylor, all of whom are very, very amazing artists. If you've been watching our Instagram channel, that you guys have really changed the way I think the whole school thinks about Instagram. Your posts have been amazing. The way you guys have been sharing your thoughts and your experiences, it's been amazing to see. Everybody's very excited about it, so I really appreciate that. And I invited these people to talk because we spoke about this a bit earlier. The initial impetus for this, for programming, was Black History Month, and I've always struggled with the idea, we have Hispanic Heritage Month and Black History Month like this. Yes, we should celebrate those histories, but I wanted to talk about like the fact that we need to decolonize. We need to the art collection, the museum experience, the art experience, and we need to highlight contemporary, living, breathing artists who are making amazing work and tackling, difficult, personal. In this case, this is something we're going to talk about, but you guys are making highly personal, amazing work that is just, it's in a lot of cases just, it's difficult to talk about personally, and you guys are doing it so eloquently and elegantly with your work. So at this point, if we want to maybe go Angie, Aaron, Zuri, and Rashod, you guys just take a few seconds, introduce yourself, and as far as your bio and what you do, and yeah, Angie.
Yeah, so I'm Angie Redmond. I'm still like around the emerging part of my career. I'm an oil painter. I'll be actually getting my second master's degree, but a master's of fine arts in painting from NIU this coming May. So this is my last semester. I paint mostly figurative and portraits paintings, and like I've shown throughout nationally, throughout Chicago, throughout the states, and yeah, so that's what I do.
Aaron.
Cool. Hey everybody, my name is Aaron Coleman. I'm a artist and assistant professor at the University of Arizona here in Tucson. Hopefully soon to be associate professor. Should find out by May. So that's kind of like where my professional situation lies right now. I make all kinds of work. I'm trained as a printmaker, but I make collages and drawings and paintings and sculptures, and I dabble in some installation stuff, which is becoming more of what I'm going to be doing in the future. So and I'm getting a phone call right now, and my phone is somehow connected to my computer, which is very annoying. My bad. But my work really focuses on the history of race, the idea of race, where it comes from, how it's been manipulated and used throughout history, and how it's got us to where we are today. So I won't take up too much more time with my intro. I'll pass it on.
Zuri, yeah.
Yeah, I'm Zuri Washington. I'm born and raised in Chicago, got my degree from NIU and SAIC in photography. Most of my work is based around abstract or like experimental photography, but also like installation work, ceramics, a bit of like, I mean, I wouldn't call myself a painter like Angela or Aaron, but like I do kind of dabble in a lot of different things. Most of my work deals with ancestry, kind of the history of like that severance from slavery and like the ramifications and all the echoes that kind of follow generations down the line. So a lot of family stuff. Yeah, right now I'm kind of like working through. I kind of like go back and forth from like 2 dimensions and 3 dimensions. So like right now I'm kind of back in 2 dimensions. So I'm like digging my nose into cyanotypes and photography and zines again, but I might go back up into installations sometime soon. But who knows?
Awesome. Rashod?
Zines are fun. That's awesome.
They're very fun.
Yeah, for real. Rashod Taylor. I am originally from Bloomington, Illinois. I guess, kind of down the street from you, Juan. Not really, but I'm a photographer. And I graduated, man, I feel like I'm an old man. So I graduated from Murray State University a few years ago. And I, had an art degree there. And since, I've been making work, really my work centers around family, culture, and the Black experience. So lately I've been working on 2 bodies of work called Little Black Boy and then My America. I also shoot tintypes via the wet plate process and get a lot of enjoyment out of that. It's pretty fun. And yeah, that sounds pretty good for now.
Great. Yeah, thanks. No, that's great. Thank you guys for that. So I sent you guys this. I don't know. I want to hear your thoughts about this idea. I know it can go a little crazy, tangentially. I mean, so you guys are making, you're artists in America, you're Black artists in America, 2020, 2021. How do you make art in the climate where it is so everything seems like it's an attack and it's so personal? Like 2020 was a very rough year for everyone, but it just, the Black community, it seems like in a lot of ways had to deal with not only what everybody else, I mean, this is like indicative of like the entire history of being Black in America, of having to deal with everybody's stress plus this extra stress, right? So how do you guys make work, and how do you deal with that when you're making work? Or does that even, I think that's why I love your work, is because it does kind of deal with some of these topics. And I'm just curious, like how you take something that's so difficult and how do you process that through your artwork? I don't know if that's an easy question. I think it's probably too hard of a question, but Angie, yeah.
Well, for the paintings that I do, they really are already like focused around current events that's happening at time, based on through the Black experience, like I've done work about when there was the natural hair movement and all of that. And then, this past summer with the rise of Black Lives Matter and everything, I'm working, on work about that as well. So for me, like 2020 was horrible. And just with everything going on, with the civil rights, with the civil unrest and the pandemic and everything, it was hard to create just because, it's just you don't know what's going to happen. But as far as, when I was painting and the subject matter and everything that I'm talking about, I personally, I'm going to paint what I want to paint, not really worried about other people's opinions, like that. I feel like that's what the art is for. Everyone is going to have different opinions. Some people are going to like it, some people won't, so I really don't go into it thinking about like how the reaction is going to get out of it. So I just want to, whatever I'm feeling, just, gonna paint.
Yeah. And the question too, I guess, is going to lead to, do you guys feel that weight of responsibility when you're making work? I mean, you guys are all making super personal, vulnerable work. Like, do you feel that it's your job in some way? Like, I don't know. Like,
I can hit that first. That's an interesting take. Yeah, I don't necessarily feel like it's my job, but I almost feel like in certain circumstances, you know, you're the only person of color in the room. It's like you're supposed to speak for every Black person alive, right? And that's not fair. And you know, sometimes you do feel that, but I don't feel pressure to do that because I'm going to be who I am. But to kind of go back to your first point, you know, I think for me, dealing with what happened in 2020, you know, I took just, and I will admit too, it's hard to make work when all that's going on because it does take a toll on you emotionally. And for me, I tried to take that emotional toll and just kind of dive myself into work and making new work. And I know for some people they couldn't, which is fine too, you know, but for me, I really tried to channel that and work out all those feelings into my work because I can tell you making art is a lot cheaper than therapy.
Yeah.
So I just kind of went that route and just kind of got out everything I was feeling. And a lot of stuff was built pent up though. Cause I mean, I think of things like Trayvon, even back with Trayvon Martin. I mean, that's what, 2014, somewhere in there. Somebody can fact check me on that. I don't know. But like those things I still think about. And when things you see in the news, it's almost like a multiplying effect because you see that, you see back in the Tamir Rice, you see George Floyd, you see Breonna Taylor, you see bam, bam, bam. And it gets to a point where you had enough. And it's like, gosh, so for me, it's like, I just had to get it out with my artwork. And that's kind of how I've at least been approaching it now. Through that.
Do you feel that it's unfair that that question even comes up, you know, like that we have to, you know, the Black experience is one that's associated with, you know, so much pain and struggle. Do you think, I mean, I'm curious, you know, is it because, you know, there's a weight that for, you know, that white privilege provides where if you're a white artist, you don't have to make struggles about, you know, you have to make work about struggles, right? But is there an expectation you think people are put on you, you know, as a Black artist?
Yes. Yeah, definitely. And I think it's up to the individual if they kind of want to rise to the task. I, in some aspects, do because that's what I want to talk about anyway. Like, I want to talk about my own history and like the traumas that I've inherited. Like, I want to talk about that because, again, like Rashod said, like art is, you know, cheaper than therapy. So like I definitely do. And like for me, art making is definitely like a cathartic just experiment, exercise. So yeah, I definitely some aspects, but then there's other aspects that influence how your art like takes form. That maybe, you know, I certainly don't want to kind of like give weight to like, you know, you've seen my photography. I'm much more into non-representational, non-traditional photography, but I still do talk about things like the work I'm most proud of right now is my family portraits, and they're not traditional portraits of my family, but they are definitely still talking about Blackness and like relationships between like me and my families, but they're in a way that is like, it doesn't have the same like access point, but I feel like people want that.
Yeah.
Like I definitely have felt that in stronger in some places versus others, but I've definitely felt that in like the academic sphere. Like people want me to make a certain type of image that I'm like, no, you know, I have to like learn how to say no to what other people's like expectations of Blackness.
So I see Aaron is he's like ready to jump in here, and I just want to let you have the time, Aaron. Like everybody prepare yourself.
Yeah, I mean, we're moving at light speed right now, right? You know, I mean, we got like 3 different topics on the table that we could spend a lifetime digging into. And so I want to address the very first thing you asked and say that, you know, to some degree, I'm a little bit cynical, right? I'm a little bit bitter because for people of color, the issues, some of the issues that we're talking about they're not new, right? And that goes without saying to certain audiences, but what Rashod said about the news having this like multiplying effect, when the pandemic hit and people had nothing to do, they started paying attention, you know? And so George Floyd was murdered in the street and somebody had it on cell phone and it hit social media and the whole world was paying attention because the whole world was sitting at home looking at their cell phones. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But before that, before the pandemic, it was years. I mean, it's been forever, right?
Yeah.
There's no time limit on it. It's timeless. We've been here. It's always been here. The issues have always been here. And so it was almost like, you know, and this touches on what Zuri just said about the form of the work taking different shape, you know. And so when the pandemic hit and the whole world was watching because they had nothing else to do, it became the hot topic. And it was like, man, my phone is connected to my computer. I'm sorry, guys.
You're an important guy. We get it, man. We get it.
And so, you know, my work that was very direct and was heavy-handed and kind of bursting through these issues that I've been researching and studying my whole life changed overnight because I couldn't handle it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I was already looking at Black Death. I was already researching medical atrocities. I was already researching the history of the church and its role in perpetuating racist ideas and its benefit from it. You know, I was already doing all that. So then when the whole world jumped on board and started sending me emails and text messages and did you see this video? Did you see this dude get shot? I'm like, yeah, I've been watching this. Yeah. And so I don't need the world shoving it down my throat because I already feel responsible to know about it, you know?
Right.
And so I watched my work kind of with almost no control change from being very outward and political to being very inward and introspective and personal. You know, I started really thinking about myself and who I am and where I come from, my father and his lineage. And so it's almost like this kind of ebb and flow, this surge and then disappearance of these issues in the mainstream. Mm-hmm. It does have an impact on me because, you know, it's like a explosion of the trauma that I'm already studying, you know, for myself and for my community.
Yeah, I definitely see that in your work, man. Your work definitely took a turn and it was powerful, you know, the way that turn happened. And it's, you know, that's a really great point. How that's related to, I'm gonna kind of, the article that I sent you guys was just it's an editorial about the idea of what was it? It was Black abstract artists finally getting their due in the art market, right? In the art market. So I struggle with this so much because it's so unfair and you know, but it's about time, right? But also the idea of how a type of artwork in its form can be identified to a culture, right? Like the expectation that Zuri talked about, like people want you to make work that is like this because you are, you know, the assumptions that surround you and all the prejudices that surround you. I don't know if you guys, some of you might remember Alan Moore. I went to grad school with him as well, and I remember he was doing his he was having a critique and he was painting and drawing pictures of his family, and everybody was associating these, like, you know, ideas of poverty and violence, and he's like, it's my friend going to the store. It was nothing like that, and this was, you know, 10 years ago or whatever, but the expectation is always there. So how do you think with the type of art you make, do you ever deal with people who comment about, you know, your choice of how you use art, you know, versus what their expectation of how you should use art? Like, do you have anything that you could maybe think about the students and maybe some of the reasons that they might have to make art, and like how you guys dealt with those situations?
Well, yeah, I would say I actually had from the story you just told about Alan Moore, I had a very similar situation. Like you know, I started off in my painting career talking about, you know, very Black specific issues, with natural hair and all that. But once I got into grad school here, I wanted to talk about, it's not necessarily about a Black experience, but it was stuff about, self encouragement and resilience in yourself, as a person. And but the people I was painting, like it was either myself or friends and family. So these were Black people. And I would constantly, have professors and fellow students and everything who would say, uh, they every time I tried to explain what it was about or tell them what it was about, they always, oh, so it's about a Black woman doing this, that, you know what I mean? So it's like it was expected of me that no matter what I'm painting, it has to be race related, and it was, and that went on for a while. So I do think that that happens a lot, as a Black artist, that others expect that you're going to make Black art, especially if you're painting a Black person, that person is political in some type of way.
Mhm. Anybody else got a comment on that? Or?
Something that comes up almost every time I give a lecture, afterwards during the Q&A, somebody always asks me about being an activist, and they ask me if I consider myself an activist and if I think making the work that I make is enough. And I'm always like ready to just like throw a book at somebody when they ask me the question. I'm like, I'm not gonna swear. I told you I wouldn't swear. So
you can.
Like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And I mean, for one, I just don't consider myself an activist, like in the way that I imagine that word. I mean, I do think, activism needs like every role filled, and culture creation and people documenting the times through art is a part of that.
Yeah.
But I think when people ask me that question and then they get to the part about, is it enough? They're asking like, do you deserve to talk about these issues if you don't like have your hand in the pot? Like, are you on the street with a picket sign, like screaming in the cops' faces and stuff? And I always think, like, when was the last time you asked a white abstract painter that question?
Yes.
Like, so because my work is about these issues, I also have to put my body on the line and like, and be part of this like movement. And so I find that's a really funny question to me, like.
It's really, I think I've had this conversation with another photographer, Jasmine Clark, who, we kind of like, we think about this as like, our own art making and presence within the gallery is almost an active, revolution, just because it's been such a place where you just don't feel welcome. And culturally, people, historically, I don't know if maybe it's a class thing I'm dealing with more than anything, where I've never really felt, I don't know, comfortable within those kind of, high art areas. I'm not sure. I don't know if you guys ever, does that relate to any of this, you think? In any way, do you feel like just your pure presence of making artwork is sometimes, and being in galleries and dealing with people wanting you to be a representative of the entire Black culture, or entire, whatever, and they want you to have this specific way about doing things? I mean, I kind of look at it as like, this could be an act of, it definitely is an activist, stance. I think you are making a statement, but I struggle with that. I don't know. What do you guys think about that idea? I don't know if that was very clear. I kind of rambled. But
I kind of feel like there's an expectation. Well, there's an idea of what activism looks like for Black people, and then there's an idea of like, we kind of have to also be, like Aaron was saying, we have to kind of like be in the trenches, on the streets. Like, we can't also be creating flyers or organizing or like making food or raising funds. Like, it has a very specific way of like looking, again, going back to like art forms. Like, there's a very specific idea of like Black activism that people have, that I feel that people have. And so when you're doing anything else that isn't necessarily like going to put you directly in harm's way, it's not really considered activism, I feel. Like, donating to and passing around bail funds isn't considered as as much activism as, going to protest. I'm like, well, I mean, it's also still helping. Like, it's still a very important thing that needs to get done. But like, that's
absolutely,
it doesn't fit. I mean, I could talk forever about what doesn't fit, but
yeah.
Can I hop in and ask a quick question?
Yes.
You guys probably like I was like super fan on all of your work on Instagram. So you like whenever Amy liked something that was me, I really, really enjoyed everything you guys. It was awesome. But something that Juan and I sort of talked about yesterday, and maybe you asked about it already. So if you did, just like, shoo me and move on. But each of you guys seem in very different ways to have just like this really vulnerable aspect to your work, but in very, very different ways. Like Rashod, your photographs of like family and like childhood and fatherhood and motherhood just like got me like I am with my kids every single day, 24 hours a day. And like, I get like too much, like they just left and I was like, thank God. But like it just got me on such in a way that like the vulnerability of those pictures was beautiful and scary. If it was me, I don't know, like if I would have had the courage to do those pictures. Aaron, your work is vulnerable in your face sort of way. Zuri, your use of materials and how you manipulate them. And Angela, your subject matter and how just almost larger than life, these beautiful and textural portraits are. They all are vulnerable in a different way that is sort of like beautiful and honest that, oh, maybe I'm just a wimp. I don't know if I'd be able to do. And sort of like, how do you do that? And I don't know, yes, how do you do that? And how does it feel to like walk that vulnerability and own it? Because it's awesome and it's brave. And you guys are, I wish I was as cool as you. So run with that.
All right, I'll lead off. No, I appreciate those words, Amy. And honestly, I sometimes ask myself that too, like, man, with some stuff that I put out there, I think it just kind of comes back to a place of being honest and vulnerable. And then really with my art making, it's an expression of me and how I feel. And hopefully, I feel this way, but I hope that my art can connect to others and they can kind of look at their own situations or introspectively look at them and say, man, I kind of connect with this piece of this life or of this image, whatever it is. So I think that helps motivate me a little bit to just be more open and honest. And then secondly, my work just comes from a honest place because I make work because I love it and I love the subject matter and I enjoy it. So, a part of me is in that. And that's what I want to kind of, just share with the world, because ultimately, we can make the best work, but if you never show it to anybody, I mean, it's still good, but like, I think that's the big piece of art making. Like, we want the stuff to get out in the world and share our souls in a way. Right. So, but yeah, thanks for that question.
I think there's when you're talking about people who are oppressed or underrepresented or haven't had their time in the light or haven't been given the same opportunities, there's a built-in kind of like richness and generosity that comes from the work that people in those positions make. And it's, for me, my work, I'm not trying to be vulnerable. I don't know if you can try to be vulnerable. I don't know how that works, but I'm usually kind of a grumpy person and like, I'm not, I don't know how like sensitive I am really, but there's pride and there's pain and there's a sense of wanting to do right by your community or your family. There's like new trauma, there's generational trauma, there's happiness in expressing joy. There's therapy in working through the issues for yourself. And when you put all that together, that is a very vulnerable thing. You're seeing, like, I think someone could say the word vulnerable and think about like sadness and sensitivity, but to be like totally vulnerable, I think, is to like offer yourself up. And that means every side of it. And so, you know, Amy, when you say that my work is vulnerable in an in-your-face way, to some degree that sounds like an oxymoron, but when you really sit back and think about it, it's like you're getting frustration and anger and truth. You know, you're getting things that you were told the opposite for your whole life, you know, and now here's somebody rewriting history for you. So it's like there's something about that level of generosity. I mean, I think there's generosity in just being a maker, period, in making and putting it out into the world. But when it comes from such an honest point, especially from someone who's been oppressed or stepped on, it just kind of blows it wide open.
For me, I used to be a very like shy person, very quiet, but you know when I would see things going on, like the negativity against black hair and the Gucci products and stuff like that, with showing sample images and stuff. I always wanted to say something about it, but I'm not quiet anymore. But I was always like the more reserved person who was not gonna get on the street and with a microphone in the cop's face type of thing. But I always had my art, so I started to use my paintings to kind of be my voice. That's why they're very bright, very vibrant, very in your face type of paintings. They, see them in person, they are really large. So, and I still do that. Like I let my art be be my voice and speak and say the things that I am comfortable saying, but I can express it through my craft as well. And what was I gonna say? Yeah, so that's basically it. So my art, I'm vulnerable, if you will, with my paintings because like they speak for me. And then once once galleries and museums and like friends and families were accepting it, getting into shows and stuff like that, that to me also was kind of like gain confidence, like that this is working, so I can continue to use my art to make these statements.
I think I kind of embody that vulnerability because I'm making work. I'm gonna be honest. I'm making work like first and foremost for me. So like I'm my number one like audience. I'm the first audience who's going to be seeing the work that I'm making, and like it's going to be, you're going to hear me say therapeutic all the time, like the next hour or whatever. But it is really a process for me to process what's going on, my history, and then everything that's going on. So I needed to be a source of like comfort for me. I needed to be able to hold space for me to have, these certain feelings that might be, monstrous or ugly or, weak or whatever, good or bad adjectives. I need my work to be able to kind of like hold me and like prop me up. So like that, just the act of doing that makes it a very like vulnerable experience for other people to then like look at or then also experience the same way that I experience it. Like my installations are very much like you move through the way I move through, and like it comes like a whole like sensorial mishmash. But yeah, my vulnerability is because like I'm like talking to myself, and so like I need to be honest like with myself.
That's awesome. I guess I forgot to mention the chat is open for students to post questions in there, and Amy's going to be looking at that. And if you're in one of Amy's classes and you need your extra credit or it's required, make sure you put your name and class in there because it's important. So I actually, this is something I'm going to apologize for. I never actually told you guys that I was thinking about this title of Approaching Truth for an exhibition. I'm just kind of curious. Aaron, you're going to get some extra credit, buddy. We'll get you. I'm curious, how would you guys interpret that? Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like, I have my reasons, and I just want to kind of compare notes and see what you guys think in terms of what that phrase means and how it could relate to your work.
What's the phrase? I was messing around in the chat.
Approaching truth. Approaching truth. So like the reason I thought of this, and I'm just going to give you this, is Aaron, your work. I remember we talked about the honesty, and that's being, you know, repeated here and reiterated, but there is something that is really powerful with all of your honesties, right? And that's, again, you know, I kind of, this is one of the things where I go back and forth. Am I, you know, am I like participating and adding to this kind of like, you know, structure of you know, this like systemic racist, you know, attitude of, you know, just looking at like Black artists and expecting so much from them, you know? Am I doing that and trying to put this show together? My hope is it's not that, but I want to know if, you know, am I asking you, you know, too much of your work, you know, in a way? But because I see this, and it's, to me, it's like you guys are all approaching these different these the same topic, but from these different, you know, ways, and it's something that's very beautiful, and they harmonize in a way that I think in a show, an exhibition would be just extremely powerful. So approaching truth, that's kind of like my thing behind it. What do you guys think?
I'll start us off. I'll start us off. I think first of all, it's, you know, I think a lot of people would say that us four, along with you know, everybody else out there who's making work, I think they would say that like you're making work about the same topics, and it all fits together. But the thing is, like, we're making work about very different things.
Mm-hmm.
We just all happen to be brown, and centering on brown culture and brown history and brown life and it's like, for us, it's not brown history and brown culture, but it's life. It's history. It's culture. It is truth. It is for real. It does exist. It's not like this other thing under a little umbrella somewhere over there where you can go learn this alternate reality. You know what I mean? And so I think part of why I'm saying this is because, you know, I have my understanding of what truth is. I have my ideas of what truth is. I dig and dig and dig for the truth, and I try to present that to people. I dig and dig and dig through the falsehoods and try to expose those to people. But this exhibition, this pending exhibition, has a potential to highlight truth via the range, the versatility, right? So you're seeing something. It's not like one voice telling you this is how it is. You have four people who are making work in completely different mediums about completely different topics, and they all happen to be brown. And so it's like, we're showing you that this is the truth. You know, we're showing you that based on all these different life experiences. I mean, my life is completely different than Zuri's. You know, Angie's life is completely different than Rashod's. Like, we all have dealt with different things and experienced different things. So if you bring us all together, there's some amount of human truth there. And that's, to me, when you talk about approaching truth as the title of this exhibition, that's how I see it. Not as like, Black people are going to tell you what's what, and that's the end of it. We're showing you that this is life.
Yeah.
We live, we're living human beings, you know?
Yep.
Yeah, and I really feel like you have such like a hands-off like approach to curating this, because you're kind of just asking us to talk about what is important to us, and you know, what is just what we're thinking about. It's not like, okay, I want this piece of you, and like I want this piece, you know, from Angie, and I want, you know, this, you know, we're not like being told, okay, just print this and send this off to the show. It's like, what do you want to make, and what do you want to like, how do you want to be in conversation with the other, you know, three artists? It's basically, we're kind of creating a narrative just by like being in proximity to each other, and like it's not necessarily like I think there is truth that's going to come out just by our works kind of interacting with each other and like speaking, and like, you know, I don't know, I just think that there's like a lot of there's
Yeah.
a lot of potential there, and I'm really excited to see what comes out of like our work interacting. I would love to see a space where like everything is like coming together and like coalescing nicely. But I think like it feels to me like so very hands off that whatever is going to come together, like it's going to be, it's going to be the truth.
I think Zuri just called me lazy, but that's okay. I'm all right with that. Point is, no, I'm just kidding. No, actually, to be fair, I did tell Rashod I want to see is a Little Black Boy. Like I love those prints so much, man, that I want to see those. And but so I did have one, demand there, Zuri. But the rest of you can do whatever.
So you're not lazy,
Rashod, only. No, I'm just kidding. Your work, the new work you have coming out that you're posting is really great stuff too. But
Guys, he's really bossy all the time, so consider yourself lucky.
What do you guys think, Rashod and Angela, about that? Approaching truth.
I agree with what Aaron and Zuri said. Like when I first heard it, approaching truth, that the truth means so many different things to so many different people, and I feel like there's no way to specifically point out, unless it's like a scientific fact, there's no way to point out what the truth is. So I like that idea, of having, these different artists coming in with these different mediums, but similar subject matter, but it's like it's our truth and there's different ways that we're approaching it. So I think it goes well with that idea of approaching too, because again, it could be so many different things.
I mean, I think you all already said it all. I mean, I could say the truth will set you free. I mean, I don't know what you want, but I think that I think that ditto to everything that's been said, and I think ultimately, when you have artists that can share their own truths collectively, it's very powerful. So yeah, I'm excited to see how things come together.
Yeah, and you guys, I mean, I'm not gonna Aaron knows this. I love talking about how great artists are, and you four are making some amazing work. And I just, I really want you to know that it's really important for our students to see that. It's really important for our community to see that. Representation absolutely matters, and it's something that I think as an institution, they're 100% behind it and support it. And I want to make sure you guys know that all of the success you're going to, you have and going to be running into in the next few years is due to me. A lot. No, I'm just kidding. But it's really well deserved. It's really well deserved. You guys are awesome. But Amy, I want to know if there's any questions in there. What do we got in the chat? What's going on with that?
Yes, we have some questions. Let me see here. Hold on. And more new ones are coming in. Sorry. How about this one? Oh, sorry. I didn't have my shit together here.
Carlos's question's been out there for a while.
All right, here we go. When you're creating art, do you try to just incorporate only your thoughts, or do you prefer to incorporate ideas from others that have been impacted, or events, or how much of yourself are you putting into it, and how much of either other artists or events come in, or is there like not a neat and tidy sort of formula for that, or does it depend on the work?
Ooh, I'll go first. Yes, beat y'all. I think for me, a lot of my stuff is just really deeply personal. So again, going back to something I think Zuri said, I make art first and foremost for myself, and then obviously, everything else is gravy. But it's interesting because I make art for myself and selfish from that standpoint. But when I take a step back and look at the work, I think my work is really informed by just life. I think Aaron talked about it. We're just talking about life. And when you look at that and how your life, develops and transforms, there's a lot of things that go on, regardless of what you look like or who you are, that people will connect to and grab a hold of. So for me, I'm married, I have a son, most everyone has some kind of interaction with a little Black boy, right? Or have been around Black boys and see them growing up, right? So there's an idea of connection in that. And then I think of just with my upbringing in art in college, even sometimes those art history classes that I fell asleep in, because it's so dark and stuff, I remember some of that stuff though. Like, you in the subconsciously, you see things in composition, or like you have references that are in your mind that you don't even know, and you compose things, or you paint things, or you do whatever, and those things come out. So I think that I do make art for myself, but at the same time, I do think those influences and things kind of come up almost subconsciously in a way. And obviously there's some little spots where I may specifically, hit on a point. Like for me, I have an image called It's Complicated, with my son holding an American flag, and then me in the background with a reflection. You can see my Black Power shirt, and like that kind of came out of, but it was it was more of a broader scale. Like I had more of a universal feel when I was making that work, because I feel like I'm conflicted living in America and being Black, but I know that's a general consensus, right, of a lot of people. So I think in my work, it worked out in things like that in terms of that duality. But that's a good question.
Rashod, you're coming to my art history class when you come to campus. You're going to see what kind of rockin' fun we have in art history in 2021. Right.
I like it.
Go ahead, Aaron.
I was going to say, I fell asleep in art history, but it had nothing to do with the level of lighting. I think as much as I would like to think that I'm like a genius and just coming up with ideas and making work, I think Rashod touched on some good things. Like, there are influences that find their way into your psyche or your subconscious or whatever you want to call it. And, as a professor, I'm constantly trying to get students to not realize, I'm trying to encourage them and reaffirm to them that their experiences, their life, where they come from, their interests are all valid points of departure for a studio practice. So, I think my last 3 exhibitions are all named after hip hop albums from the 90s. You know what I mean? And like, my life as a graffiti writer has a major influence on everything I do. It's probably why my work is, for the most part, so in your face, because I'm used to writing my name on people's shit, like, it's like, that's just that part of my blood is always going to be there. So I think, from things I read to things I listen to, the music I listen to in the studio could totally shift the gears for me. Like, it could totally change the direction of what I'm making and what it's going to look like. So I think it's not so much that I try to make work from my own mind, or I try to seek outside influences. I don't do either of those wholly or intentionally 100%. My goal is to like be more fluid. And the older I get, the more fluid I feel, and the more I embrace that feeling, and I trust myself to know that I'm not gonna make something in a vacuum and call it my own. But I'm also, I'm not going to ignore the kind of ambient energy around me. It's just there.
Any other questions, Amy, in there?
Yeah, we actually have too many, so we won't get to them all.
Okay.
I have a couple. I'm going to start with this one just because I think if some of my students were at the talk yesterday, I'm sure this is sort of on their mind. How has the pandemic changed your art, or how you share your art with your audience?
Well, I'll start. The pandemic, especially at the beginning, like I used to be, I was usually very productive. Like, I'm also in the studio, hours at a time getting stuff done. And when the pandemic hit, it was just like a total shift where it was like, at first physically I couldn't paint because my studio was on campus and they wasn't allowing anyone to go to, the buildings. But, I was also like mentally, couldn't create just because I'm just so, worried about everything that's going on, what's going to happen to the world, So I kind of felt like stopped. But, at one point, It's like I got to get back in the studio. I got to keep working. And to me, once I got back to working again in the studio, it was pretty much like, just picked up where I left off at, because I always like to talk about, current events, and like how it affects me, and then how, it affects my friends and family. So it's always coming in, with the Black experience. So, after I was able to get over that mental block, of just not knowing what's going to happen, I was able to just pick back up where I left off at.
So my work has completely changed form because I do I do a lot of like installations with a lot of soft surfaces that require you to be in cramped spaces. So obviously you can't do that when you have to be like 6 feet from everybody at all times. So that really kind of changed. It forced my hand basically to shift my thinking into something else, which is why I'm like going back into 2D, which is why I'm like going into zines to kind of like create the same kind of feeling of like, okay, I'm looking at this and I want other people to look at this the same way. But now I can just, send it in the mail, or like have, hand it off to somebody, and like they can still experience it without being exposed to anything. But yeah, I mean, it's basically forced me to have like another iteration of my work, which is like very much what my work is about. So I wouldn't say it was a positive experience, but it's definitely like, okay, I'm just like shifting gears a little bit again.
I really subscribe to all the people on Instagram that were like, it's a pandemic, stop doing everything, just chill. That was like, I was like, y'all are my heroes. I'm not doing nothing. I'm not doing nothing. I'm done. I'm tired. This is crazy. People are sick. People are dying. Y'all trying to have Zoom meetings. Y'all sending emails like it's your job. Like, this is too much. We trying to be overproductive when everything is shut down. No thanks. And all them people on Instagram that were like, stop. I was like, thank you.
That is
Now, don't get me
awesome.
wrong. I definitely still play Animal Crossing. Like I'm still chilling. I'm not just like work. But yeah, nah.
Love it, Aaron. Yes,
Yeah,
I'm down with that.
there is so much power in that, to just not, and have a choice to not. That's, if you have the ability, that's amazing. So this is more, let's say, intro for our institution to get to know you guys, because I want to, do future programming with you guys in the next, hopefully within the next couple of semesters. We'll find out. I really appreciate you guys making the time, and sharing with us. Your work again is great. You guys make amazing statements. Thank you to the students who showed up, asked questions. Amy, for doing the Amy thing. And do you guys have anything you want to share before we go? Any plugs? Rashod, do you want to plug one of your awards that you won?
Are you going to say our work is great again? Like, because I think one more time, just once more.
I really miss having you in class, Zuri. I really miss you.
No, no, I don't have much. No, I mean, I'm in the show out in Colorado at the Colorado Photographic Arts Center right now up until April with 2 other amazing artists. So doing that, and then yeah, man, that's about it. I stay busy, but yeah. Oh, follow Nat Geo, the Nat Geo Instagram. I think something might pop off tomorrow. So
Aaron, you got a show right now too, right?
Yeah. I just finished up a big body of work. Well, kind of 3 bodies of work for one show. The show is called Monumental Shadows. You can see it virtually in the Comachak Gallery of Benedictine University. And there's kind of 3 different series in that exhibition, and they're big, funky, crazy mixed media, weird things. So check them out.
Angie, you are about to leave grad school, so you're probably gonna have a show soon.
I got a couple shows going on now. American Skin at the NYCH Gallery, Niche Gallery in Chicago. And in April, I think it's April 1st is when it's open. I'm going to be at the Museum of Science and Industry's Black Creativity, their annual
Right.
event. I'm in that show. as well.
Yeah, that's cool. It's cool. Zuri, do you have anything with your great work?
Not at all, no.
No.
But I'm still making, I mean, I'm trying to, I guess, work outside of that space.
Sure.
Like I'm really, I mean, I mentioned zines, but I'm really trying to kind of like get into like
Yeah.
interacting with people through our really incredibly slow mail service. So we'll see. We'll see if that comes. Yeah, if that happens.
Zuri, I might reach out and connect to you. I'm working on a class for next semester. It's the kind of the history of art during pandemics, and I'm interested to talk to, because your art had to change so radically. So I might be sending you an email. I would like to talk a little bit more about that and have you in to talk.
Cool. Connections. Love it.
A fun art history class.
The lights are all on, guys.
Maybe it's because it's after lunch or something. I
don't know.
wasn't off, man. Whew.
Maybe. All right. Well, we're going to end it there. And I really appreciate, again, I really appreciate me hosting this for you all and all the work I didn't put in, apparently. But thank you guys. And we'll talk to you soon, okay? And I'm going to stop recording and let you know. Your checks are in the mail, kids. Your checks are in the mail.
Get them bags. Let's go.
Hey, I appreciate all